now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
No, you're muted.
A great way to start off a Friday show. You're muted. Yes, I am. Good morning. We have kicked Mark Thompson to the curb. Not really. He's in Washington, D.C. visiting his parents. So we're just kind of playing, I guess we can't say playing radio anymore. Playing TV, playing YouTube while he's gone. We've got Albert. How are you today, Albert?
I'm good. The Niners won the division last night.
Awesome.
We're looking at. We're in the playoffs. We're in the big dance. We're gonna see if we get we win it all this season.
What was the score, Albert?
It was 21-13. The Seahawks jerseys looked awful, and the Niners jerseys looked beautiful, and they played beautifully too. So it's not often. We talked about the Thursday night games yesterday that they're usually ugly, but it was a very pretty. It was a very pretty win.
It was super pretty. How'd he do?
He did great for somebody who has an injured oblique, that affects your throwing. He looked pretty good out there.
Yeah, awesome. What up, Tony?
Hey,
how you doing today?
doing all right.
All right. Oh, look at that voice. That was a good voice.
I was up late.
Oh.
This is a tired Tony.
Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't start today's show by thanking the founding sponsor, the guy who makes it possible. It is tax attorney Steve Moskowitz, and this is the most amazing guy. I don't know if you heard his story. This week alone, he saved one man $1 million. Well, he got him $1 million that the man didn't know he was eligible for. Thought he was eligible for 100,000. And Steve looks at it and says, nope, $1 million. How must it feel? Like, I don't know, when you go to bed at night after a long day of work, to think about how you just got some guy $1 million. That's cool. Anyway, if you need help with your taxes, Steve is at 888 Tax Deal. He's also at moskowitzllp.com, and we'll be talking to him coming up. And I'm going to ask him because I know listeners and viewers had requested a taxi story, and Steve used to be a New York City taxi cab driver. So today I'm going to get him to tell us a taxi cab story. I really am. But right now, I would absolutely love to welcome in a very dear friend that some of you may know. This is Jennifer Jones-Lee, former KGO anchor, current anchor at KFI in Los Angeles. And oh, Jennifer, the chance to see you is so exciting to me.
You are as beautiful as ever, and you have the prettiest hair on the planet, and I would like to steal it from you someday, just saying.
Talk about beautiful. You're a hot LA blonde these days.
Oh my gosh. See, you get fired from KGO,
right?
You get a job in LA, you go to LA, you bleach your hair blonde, you go have weight loss surgery. It's a thing. I think it's like part of, you change your driver's license and you have to do the other things.
That's what you do. That's exactly. Okay, so we're getting into some of the questions I wanted to ask you because I feel like you're really a California expert. You've lived everywhere from Redding to Sacramento to the Bay Area and now Los Angeles. So how does it all compare? Like, where's your favorite spot?
Oh, I'm still a super rural girl. So it's funny, even when I was living in San Francisco or working in San Francisco, I still always lived out, So like the last place we lived was American Canyon by Napa. Right. And now I live in Fontana, which is out in the Inland Empire, still away from Burbank. So I like to go into the cities and do my thing, but I was actually born in San Bernardino. I was born about 5 or 6 exits from, or I guess was brought home to a little house that was 5 or 6 exits from where I live now, but then grew up in Redding. And so I've always lived out. And so the outer places are my favorite, although being able to say I work in San Francisco or I work in, LA is pretty awesome. So it's fun.
I have been now, since doing the Mark Thompson show, kind of following stories all over the place instead of being Bay Area centric, because I know we have a lot of listeners from Los Angeles. We have listeners actually everywhere. So interesting. If you look at where the podcast version of the show, because after the YouTube show is over, the sound is taken and distributed on all the podcasts. You could listen without viewing on Spotify, Apple, Google, podcasts, whatever. So I try to be like, get the biggest stories everywhere, but I've been following LA politics. And I always thought San Francisco politics was like, what is happening? But LA politics gives it a run for the money. Which is crazier, San Francisco or LA politics?
LA 100%. I mean, right now, the LA City Council is giving us you almost don't even have to come up with show prep sometimes the next day. It's like, what happened with Kevin De Leon yesterday? So for people who don't follow it, just the really quick backstory of it is there was a leaked piece of audio from our then LA City Council President, Nuri Martinez, 2 other council members, Gil Cedillo and Kevin De Leon. And in it, there were some really racist comments made specifically about one of our council members' sons who is Black. It was some of the worst stuff that you can imagine. And they're laughing on it and whatever. Immediately after it comes out, I mean, within a few days, the council president steps down, she resigns, but the 2 others stayed on. And that's where it has gone crazy. One of them is he lost re-election, so he's out at the end of this year. But Kevin De Leon, who was seen by the Democratic Party as somebody who really was an up-and-comer, we were going to see him in the Senate and whatever. Now, holy cow, this guy's fighting for he can't go to a city council meeting now without so many protesters coming in, wondering what in the world he's even doing there. He can go to the meeting, but he can't sit in the chamber. He has to vote outside the council chambers. It's insanity, Kim. You've never seen anything like it.
Because the minute he steps in, like the chorus of boos and chants begins.
It's this cacophony of boos. And then when he did try and go to a meeting a couple of days ago, he ends up in an altercation, and they're still, I don't know who pushed who first or hit who first, but with a guy, and he loses his Santa hat. I mean, now it's getting physical.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it. And at the
That's
same
a city
time,
council meeting.
I'm telling you, as a news person, I'm like, let's talk about what happened in the city council. Woo!
Yes.
So, crazy.
That's some good stuff right there. I mean, that's horrible. Really horrible.
Exactly. Horrible. In a great way. Right. I get it.
So I was looking at your Facebook page, as I often do. Not that I'm stalking you or anything, but I like to see what's going on when you're with you. And you were like an MC, fancy MC with sequins on a stage with the spotlight. The KFI Christmas party was like the Oscars.
It was. You know what is really fun? Ever since I got to LA, I think I got here in May, and by July or August, I was on stage. LA is this whole, you have to understand that when you work down here, it's sort of infotainment. And I think Mark would probably echo these words.
Right.
You end up doing, yes, your job, and you're the news person and this sort of thing, but you're also a personality down here, which is very different than what I've ever experienced in the business. So it's a lot about attending events and emceeing and being parts of shows and doing live stuff and a lot of charity work, which I love. Like, I've really gotten into that. That's been a lot of fun. But yeah, yesterday was our KFI Christmas party. And so in it, you get this email that comes out, and it'll say, hey, do you want to be a part of this contest or something like that? And it said there was karaoke. Well, as you will know, I like to sing, but I like bar karaoke where everybody's going to pass the mic around and, maybe there's going to be some booze involved.
You don't just like to sing. You're a singer.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's not just a hobby with you. Like, you open your mouth and it sounds really good.
Thank you. Well, yesterday, that's what happened. So, I mean, there were 4 of us. It turned out to be a contest. It was this fun thing, but LA is it's a lot of sequins and a lot of fun and a lot of high heels and stuff I've never done. But you learn to get very gutsy and very confident. And you know what? You start having fun. Your nerves go away and you start just having a good time. It's kind of a cool thing that you find about yourself.
Yeah, this whole YouTube thing is different for me. I fought being on camera for a long time. And just because of what you said, like, you kind of start getting more confident about things.
Yeah.
I haven't been. Like, I'm a radio girl. I just kind of want to, I want to use my personality and I want to use the content. I don't want to use the visual, right?
Yes.
And so I'm so glad to see that you're embracing it and that you're loving it and that it's becoming fun for you because that means there's hope for me.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
what? There absolutely is.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding too is the mean people on, social media or whatever that make those comments are so few and far between that if you really look into the people who want to support you
Yeah.
and who love you and you know what my favorite things are when they say stuff like, "Oh, JJL, I love your personality," or "You make me smile," or whatever. That's all I care about. Like that,
Yeah.
my work here is done. I
That's
gave
right.
you some news. I made you happy. You smiled and you went away thinking we were friends because
Right.
in my mind, we are too. I don't know
Yeah.
you, but the fact that you put up with me for that long, oh my, we need to be friends. I owe you.
That's exactly
Is the
right.
way I feel.
Yes. I couldn't agree anymore. Okay, so I'm going to throw this at you because
Okay.
last night, well, first of all, let me just say, writing news in your career, maybe not where you are now, but writing news in your career, you
Yeah.
become a bit of a wordsmith, right? And you like to
Yes.
shake things up a little bit.
Okay.
And I also, one of my pastimes is Scrabble. So I
Oh,
really love words. I could play Scrabble all day long. Love it.
okay.
So I'm helping my daughter who's 13 in 8th grade
How is
with
she
her.
13? Oh, gosh.
I
Okay. Sorry.
know.
Wow.
You should
Sorry
see
about
her.
that.
She's talk about a singer. Julia's a singer.
Oh,
So
I'd love to. Okay.
yeah, she's got
Sorry.
musical theater voice. Like she could sing to the rafters. It's great.
Oh, I
So
love
she's
it.
got this vocabulary test today, which she's probably taking right now. So
Okay.
she makes up these index cards and says, "Quiz me." Okay. I get to one word. Don't Google it, you guys in the chat. Don't Google it. Be honest. Make me make me feel really stupid. In all my years, I have never seen this word. So I get to this word, abstruse. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. And I say, "Do you mean obtuse?" And she's like, "No, mom, abstruse." Hmm, I've never heard of it. This teacher has stumped me with an 8th grade vocabulary word, abstruse. Am I the only one who's never seen this before? What's it
No,
mean,
me
Jen?
too. I have
No?
no idea. When I looked at that, I thought, is that spelled incorrectly? Abstruse? And I immediately thought obtuse. That was the word that came to mind too.
Right.
Abstruse. I'm going to guess that it means something odd or placed incorrectly. It's abstruse. I don't know. I'm
Oh,
guessing. I have no idea.
okay. So right now, I love the Mark Thompson show audience because what I'm getting from
Cool.
you
What are they
guys,
coming up with?
loving them, they're getting abstruse? Yes. It is a ding word. Yes. Andrew says that one's new to me. Perry Joe
Good.
Jim Bob, don't know it. Yeah.
Good.
Saw that. This one, I'm gonna click in the right way. Jack says, saw that in Mountain View first grade spelling bee prep. Really? All right. It does deserve a ding. Mark absconded, speaking of good words, with the dinger. So we don't have the dinger to ding it. But yeah, Julie, total ding. All right, so let me tell you what this word means. We'll learn it together.
Okay.
Abstruse, difficult to comprehend. So like it's an abstruse concept. It's hard for you to understand,
Fair
right?
enough. Okay.
So this is the new word for today. I'm making it the word for today, abstruse. I actually had to email the teacher and go, "Lady, you are awesome. You got me with that one. Hands down, impressive."
Ah,
She goes, "Oh, I got it from a 9th grade reader." And I felt like the biggest idiot. Okay, 9th grade reader,
me too. I'm
abstruse.
right there with you.
Love it, abstruse. And so yeah, I just wanted to see if you knew that one, and now I don't feel quite as bad
Nope.
as I did last night. You
No.
are an animal lover, and I want to talk about your
Oh,
animals because and all the charity work that you do with animals because I know that it's dear to your heart, and I wanted to give you a chance to tell us about it.
oh, thank you so much. So I
Mm.
have 3 dogs and a cat right now. I have Sophia, a little I'm not even sure what she is. I got her at the shelter. She was 4 pounds at the time. She's grown to 8, some sort of Chihuahua thing. Sophia is a Pomeranian Chihuahua. She's about 20 pounds now, also a rescue. And then a friend of mine, I'll just be perfectly honest. So I'm getting a divorce. I crashed my car, and a friend of mine,
Oh
uh,
no.
oh yeah, all in like a week, all of this went down. And he calls me and he says, Jen, your life is pretty crummy, but he used a different word. And he goes, do you want a puppy? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you didn't even ask what kind. And I said, it doesn't matter. It's a puppy. Who cares?
Yeah.
And so he was having a litter of golden doodles. So I was gifted a golden doodle puppy. And so now those are my 3. And then I have a cat, Shelby, who I actually got at the Peninsula Humane Society right next to the San Francisco airport. So these are my life. I never had any kids.
Yeah.
That's just not what God intended, apparently.
Mhm.
And instead, I have turned to rescuing animals. And I've gotten super involved with Pasadena Humane Society down here. And I'm so proud to say that I think last year we raised like 25 grand for them. This year we raised
So
like
good.
15 grand. And
Yeah.
it's just a team of the KFI listeners. And we do a walk every year for them. And it's so grassroots. And that's what I love about sometimes the work with animals is it just sort of pulls at people's heartstrings.
Yep.
So they'll give you $5, $10. It's not these like, oh, I'm giving you $10,000. It's
Yeah.
not that. It's just everyday people who are like, hey, I'm not going to go to Starbucks today. I'm going to give $5 to the animals. And so I can get behind that because I know it. I love it. The animals, I call them my babies because,
Mhm.
I see them as helpless. They can't do anything if I don't do it for them.
Yeah.
And they are my life. Very honestly, in my divorce, I said the one thing I want are the animals. You can have everything else, but I want the animals. So
And he was okay with that?
yeah, it's
Okay.
it was great. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got them all. I mean, of course, he's still very much part of their lives, but
Yeah.
it feels really good to have them. And they are everything to me. So I adore them. And anybody who asks me, hey, will you MC something or do something for it?
Mhm.
I'm always there.
So when you talk about like how your life kind of crash landed, right?
Yeah.
And then
Oof.
the new puppy, it's really it feels to me like new beginnings. This new
Yeah.
life coming into your life, like a new beginning, a new way to kind of
Yeah.
push forward with a new little one.
It is.
Yeah.
It is very much so. And the way that I look at a new year is I'm starting a new year in a new house with a new dog, with this new family member. And I see this as an incredible opportunity.
Yep.
I see this as an opportunity to raise. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you the Golden Doodle's name. Her name is Betty White.
Oh, I love
I
that.
know you know my love of the Golden Girls.
Yes.
And so Betty was always my fave. And I think because she had very ranch farmer upbringing, as did I, out on a lot of land in Northern
Yeah.
California. And Betty White is just the best, brightest thing in my life. She's a disaster. She loves mud. There's mud all over my house. She has taught me more patience than I think any dog that I have had my entire life, because there's mud everywhere. There's mud on the walls in the house. I don't even know how that happens, but it's awesome to find a kind of new you be raising her. It's really a really
Right.
cool opportunity in a new year.
I love that. And if you're talking about frustration and a messy house, you don't understand how much like having human children that actually is.
I can only imagine where you're like, how is there crayon on the wall? How? Where'd the
Oh,
crayon come from?
and pencil and stickers. Yes, all of the above. So I hear
Oh,
you.
I love it.
That's very
Oh,
cool. Okay, I'm going to throw this story at you too.
okay.
Can I have you for a couple more minutes at least?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm your
okay.
girl. Whatever you need.
All right, so you probably didn't see the story because it was on ABC 7 in the Bay Area. And I don't
Okay.
know during COVID what they did in Los Angeles as far as closing off street to traffic, but the Bay Area apparently is looking at the Embarcadero in San Francisco to be the next street to close down to car traffic. Right.
That would be a nightmare.
I mean, can you imagine? You know the traffic on the Embarcadero, like
Oh
it's a
my
major thoroughfare for
gosh.
people to get to the Media Gulch area where we used to work.
Yes.
Also
Yeah.
down to Pier 39 to all those restaurants and all those businesses. But listen to this. There's a group trying to create what they call the Grand Embarcadero. Yeah. They say voter support for Prop J in San Francisco to keep John F. Kennedy Drive and the Great Highway car-free motivated them to now try to shut down the Embarcadero to car traffic. So That would mean, they say, that pedestrians and cyclists would be safer. But critics are already saying, listen, the businesses are going to suffer because people won't be
Yes.
able to get there. And we don't want it. And so roads are already clogged. Everyone would be using side streets, right, that are already packed to try to get where they're going. And so we'll see how this goes. I think it's going to be a big deal.
I think it sounds
Yeah.
horrible. And a couple of things, I mean, you were talking about going on the side streets. Anybody who's tried to navigate the financial district to get to the entrance of the Bay Bridge, if you work down on, like, say, Battery or anything right there on the Embarcadero, nightmare in and of itself. And that's just on a good day. Now imagine you have all the traffic that is on the Embarcadero now, and you're going to funnel that through the streets of San Francisco, which are already clogged with double parked, FedEx trucks and the UPS guy and whatever, and the movers and, all that kind of stuff. Forget it. And you're right. If you think about the businesses that are right there on the Embarcadero, especially in the, I forget what they call it, the market or the like Union Square area, right? Whatever, the main like place that you can go and get chocolates and flowers and whatever that.
South of Market?
Ferry building.
Oh, the
I'm
ferry
an
building.
idiot.
Mhm,
Ferry
yeah.
building. And see, I've been gone too long. But all of those different businesses that are in there, who's going to go in there now? I mean, they get a lot of their traffic from people who are parking and walking across. So that sounds terrible. Group, if you're listening, that sounds like a terrible idea.
Agree. Okay, so here's another story. This one John Daly forwarded me last night. I thought it was pretty funny.
John.
I know, he's awesome. He just left us here on the Mark Thompson Show for a big tech job with benefits, but we are lucky to have Albert, who swept back in, who was Mark Thompson's producer before. So it's kind of been this great transition.
That's awesome.
But so John emails me the story, and it's from the Washington Post. The title says this: Gen Z came to slay. Their boss doesn't know what that means.
Oh.
So Gen Z's use of emojis, slang, and punctuation is apparently confusing older colleagues at the workplace and making for miscommunications increasingly in all of their online communication. So here's an example.
That is hilarious.
This 24-year-old woman read a message that her colleagues would be out of pocket. And she and her younger coworkers were giggling about that. Apparently, they interpreted the phrase, the younger Gen Z workers, as that their colleague planned to do something crazy or inappropriate and wouldn't be unavailable. But she also confused her older colleagues with the word slay. She said, I had to give a definition of the word slay. Now they text me all the time, slay. They're excited to know how to use it.
Oh, that is great.
Gen Zers were born between 97 and 2012, and apparently their messaging is creating a challenge for multi-generational workplaces. Here's another one. This is a 23-year-old media specialist. She said she had to adjust to seeing periods at the end of a sentence in Slack. And in her email messages, she once received a comment from a colleague saying, good job, period. But she said the period made her second guess if she was actually being praised. She's like, quote, I'm like, is it good job, ? She said. Oh, I'm overthinking it. And that's what it is. She goes, it just makes me nervous. I'm overthinking it. This 23-year-old software engineer in San Francisco says that Zoomers are interpreting periods as passive-aggressive or cold because they say it's so formal.
You know what? I actually get that. My producers are, Alex is, I don't know, maybe 28 or 29. And Tyler, who runs the board for me, he's probably he's 32. He just turned 32 yesterday. And I will say that in conversation, every now and then they say something, and I can tell my 47-year-old brain goes, wait, what? But then I try not to. Like, I try and figure it out, or I will Google it or whatever, because I don't want to be that guy who, doesn't get it. But I have found myself doing more emojis and things like that to convey, I mean, this is happy. I mean, this is whatever, because the period does, even from some of my bosses sometimes when they're like, same thing, great job, period. I want great job, ! Because that's now the mode that I'm in, trying to converse with my immediate colleagues kind of thing. So I get that. I get how that could happen.
So apparently, according to this article, some Gen Zers are even frustrated with emojis being used because they are all interpreted differently by different age groups. And I see
could
this
see
with my
that.
daughter, and one of these women says the open eyes and puckered lips, the one that goes like this, right? That
Yeah.
face. She said she and her peers look at that as not a face that's a kissy face, which is I think what it's intended to be, but as a face expressing judgment.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh.
They often use the younger ones often use the skull emoji or open mouth emoji with streaming tears to convey exaggerated laughter, as in a dead or crying from laughter. But the older workers, they don't see that way. It looks dead in the eyes, the one worker said. It doesn't seem warm. So,
Yeah.
there's all this workplace misinterpretation going on, and you think it's not important, but how you perceive that message, and because we're in the communications business, right? So, how
Right.
we say something should be taken across and perceived as how it's intended.
Right. It's very hard, but you're right. I think the first couple of times that I got the skull emoji when I wrote something that I thought was ha ha funny, and
Yeah.
then somebody young sent me the skull emoji back, I was like, did that not go across well? Does that mean that was the final nail in the coffin for me when it comes to trying to say anything funny? I had to kind of figure out what does the skull emoji mean. So I absolutely get that.
There's one in here. There's just a bunch of examples that the young person apparently, the older colleagues use the dot 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 at the end of a sentence. I do it all the
That's
time.
me. That's me.
Always with the dot dot dot.
Yep.
Like it's kind of
Yep.
like not. I haven't really finished a thought, right?
Right. Right.
Apparently, some people can perceive the dot 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 as she said, "quote Oh my God, I pissed them off." Like that, if you
Oh.
end something with a dot dot dot, younger people can go, "Oh, she's angry with me," or something.
Interesting.
My brain automatically goes, "What did I say? Oh my God, was this annoying?" It's fascinating to me how people overthink emojis or
Oh
punctuation.
yeah.
It's like it doesn't mean what you think. Like, take it at face value. That's all.
Yeah.
There's no
And
extra hidden meaning there.
now though that I know that the dot 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 are gonna make people go, "Oh my God, did I piss her off?" It makes me want to do it more just to screw with people. How horrible is that? That immediately I'm like, "Mwahaha, this is a great idea." Oh, that's
I love
crazy.
it. Anyway, so that's what I had for you today, and I
That's
just
so
miss
fun.
you, and I love you, and
I
I'm so grateful for you for coming on the Mark Thompson Show. Thank you, thank you, thank
Oh,
you.
it was awesome. I actually saw Mark at a party this weekend, and I said, "Do you know that Kim invited me to be on your show?" And so it was great fun. And he just wanted me to really quickly relay. Do we have a second?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
story of when we all got fired in 2016 at KGO. The day that we all got let go, I was on the air and I could see everybody getting fired, walking by, getting fired. And at some point, it became so routine that my co-anchor at the time, John Bristow, we would watch people go by and they would actually give us the peace sign, like
Peace
deuces.
out.
We were texting each other, like meet you across the street at the bar, like what were you gonna do, right? And so I was the very last person to get fired that day. And as we were walking out of the studio, our show had ended. And I put my stuff down, and then I started to walk away. And John said to me, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "I got to go to the bathroom." And he goes, "Well, you can't go to the bathroom. You're about to get fired." And I said, "Well, if I'm going to get fired, I want to pee first." And so that's why I wanted to walk away. Mark's like, "You have to make sure that you let them know, like, that is so you." And so, but it's like, what are you going to do? And then, you know what? Even in that situation, by the time we all walked across the street, had a big hug, got back in the
Yep.
car, I got the call from LA, and that quickly I'm down here. And so I think my thing would just be, you guys, just when you think your life is like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do next?"
Right.
Something great happens and
Like this,
you land on your feet.
right?
Just like
So
this.
I got fired that same day with you. I was a reporter out in the field on your morning show.
Right.
And they call me in. I'm doing a story about crabbers. And so I'm out standing on a boat in a bunch of, with a sea of crab, talking to a fisherman. And I get a call, "Hey, you got to come back to the studio." Like, "Oh, okay."
Never good.
By then,
Never
there was a
good.
blogger. Had already seen that I was going to get fired, that they were blowing out the newsroom. I knew it because I saw it online on a blog report.
Oh.
So I'm like, all right. So I go back in, I get fired. go across the street to Grumpy's, and that's it. But then I asked them when I got fired, I'm like, if you're still doing news, you're going to need fill-in people. So they hired me back like 3 days later. And it
That was
ended up,
so smart.
well, for me, it was because my whole family's here. But I have to say, I'm so proud of you. Like
Oh, thanks.
I'm so proud of everything you've done and the success that you've had in Los Angeles.
Mm.
And it makes me really happy to see it. So even though I was still sitting there at Station X until the bitter end and went down with the ship, as it were, I was really happy to see everything good that happened for you in Los Angeles, because even though I know there's been some trials and tribulations, because life is full of them, I think if you look at your full picture, you to me, and I know it's hard sometimes to see this in ourselves, you're my picture of success. So,
oh,
yeah.
Kim, oh my gosh, I wish we were closer so I could hug you. Thank you so much for saying that. I adore you. I think you are incredibly successful in your own right, and I'm just proud of you. Love you. Thank you again for having me on.
Love you.
And Mark, if you're listening or watching, mwah, love you as well. And it was great to see you last weekend.
Bye, Jenny Jones. Talk to you soon.
Bye. See you soon. Bye, everybody.
Okay, so now I would love to bring in Steve Moskowitz. I promised everyone tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL or moskowitzllp.com that I was going to ask you for a New York City taxi cab story.
Taxi cab confessions.
Please.
Well, and also, in respecting your shirt preferences, this is the other red and white shirt I was telling you about.
I love it. It looks so cute.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you look good in the color spruces you up. I love that. Although with the uniform, with the crisp white shirt and the navy blazer, you look very nice in that too. Not that you need me to tell you that, but I do like the shirt.
Well, thank you. That's very kind, because with the blue suits and white shirts, I had a whole closet full of them. And basically, I felt like a uniform every day.
Yeah.
It always looked the same. So taxi cab confessions. I would think the first thing I would start with is that in New York, because the city, and I drove in Manhattan, because the city was so large, when people would get in the cab, it was kind of like my version then, before I was a lawyer, of attorney-client privilege, because when somebody got in the cab, they said, here's another human being that I can talk to, and I will never see again. I can tell them anything and never have to worry about it. And they would just spill their guts.
Oh.
Yeah, taxi cab confessions. And the bottom line is, in New York, I've seen it on the movies, but it's true. Very large city, very congested, a lot of lonely people, that no one to talk to. And now all of a sudden, you have somebody captive that you can talk to.
Right.
And I always liked talking to my clients. Maybe that's one of the reasons I became a lawyer too. So, I would sit back, and you got both, a ride to your destination and my advice. Again, I was not a attorney at the time, but, I talked to him, and a lot of times it wound up that people just had nobody to talk to.
Right.
And, common sense goes a long way. And that's even true today as a lawyer, because, the thing with the taxi cab was you never had to worry about, if you confide something to somebody, then you worry, oh my God, what's that person going to think of me? They'll look at me differently, or maybe they'll say something that'll adversely affect our relationship. In the New York cab, you aren't worried you're ever going to see that person again. But with attorney-client privilege, by law, literally, Kim, if you told me you murdered somebody, by law, I can't tell anybody that. So it's safe. That's the big deal of attorney-client privilege. And
I'm thinking about all the things I could tell you finance-wise. And it's not that I'm scared that you'll tell anyone about my financial mistakes. I'm scared that you'll think less of me.
Oh, not at all. Think of me like a physician. You go into a physician, and some stranger says, disrobe and show me what you're really worried about. And you say,
disrobe.
Disrobe. And then you have some horrible oozing sore on your body.
Oh, I hope not.
But to the doctor, that's his or her chosen profession. They say, oh, okay, you have an XYZ, and I'm going to clean that out, and you take this medication and you'll be fine. The doctor doesn't see it like a non-doctor, like some horrible oozing thing. He says, okay, you have the XYZ disease, and here's the cure for it. So the bottom line is, I'm here to help people. And if I wanted to be a judge, I could have pursued that. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to be an impartial person deciding things. I was an advocate. And, I'm happy to help somebody's problems. Just like if you see a physician, you don't expect a doctor to say, "Oh my God, how did you do that?"
Yeah.
Say, "Doctor, here it is." And that's what we do. We treat people's problems. So the bottom line is you literally could tell me anything. And another nice thing is at this stage of my career, it's extremely unlikely that you could tell me something I haven't heard a bunch of times before.
Okay, I'm going to tell you an embarrassing financial thing. That it's the one time I really got in trouble with, I think, tax-wise. And Jennifer Jones-Lee and I were just talking about getting laid off, and when KGO axed the newsroom in 2016.
I remember
and
that.
I went from having a full-time job to a part-time job. And it makes a big difference when you're living in the Bay Area, right?
Sure.
I live in Petaluma, which, while not San Francisco expensive, is still not cheap.
Sure.
And so that was a big financial hit. And in order to stay in our house and have our kids go to the same school, we raided our retirement accounts in order to do that. And when we did that, we took a massive, big financial penalty from the government. It was not a wise decision, but we looked at it and then we didn't have any other choice, and we're still paying the price. So we got a huge tax penalty the year afterward and the year after that. And it was like, if I could go back and do it differently, I probably would. But on the other hand, I don't know if I would, because I wouldn't have wanted to move and shake up everyone's life just because I got laid off.
See, here's where I'm different than most financial guys. Most financial guys will tell you what to do to save every last penny. I will never, ever forget. This also goes back to New York. When I started my career in New York, there was this guy who said, "If the price of steak goes up, you eat eggs for dinner." And I thought, what? I said, "I don't want eggs for dinner. What kind of job do you have that you have to eat eggs instead of steak because the price of steak went up?"
Right.
And by the way, you won't be properly nourished. You won't do your job as well. What about your health? And what kind of lifestyle is that? Go ahead and have the steak. So, for me, if I had known you at that time, I would have said, well, what other opportunities are available? Maybe we could have borrowed money from a financial institution, although a lot of times with them, you have to prove you don't need the money before they'll give it to you, or a friend or a relative, or done something. But let's assume, worst case, the only way that you could support your lifestyle was do it. I would say go ahead and do it, because what is your kid's life worth to you?
A lot.
What is your lifestyle worth to you? So to say, okay, you know what? You could move into some neighborhood that you would be unhappy and maybe unsafe, disrupt your kid, and education is very important, and you disrupt your kids' lives, maybe adversely affecting the rest of your life. For money comes and goes. You can make money up. So the bottom line is, if you said to me, what do I think? I said, you did the right thing for your lives, for your kids' lives.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that you could have helped me then navigate and know exactly what those penalties would have been and what I was looking at. I'm grateful for that advice even after the fact. And the next time I have to go through that, or hopefully I never do, but if I do, you better believe I'm going to call you first, because
you have the number.
I absolutely trust you. The number is 888-TAX-DEAL, MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm sorry I took up so much of your time.
But it was always a joy and delight to chat with you.
Great conversation. Thank you, Steve Moskowitz. I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. All right, it is time. Oh, you know what? Before we get into Friday Fabulous Florida, God, I did it again, you guys. Friday Fabulous Florida, Florida Fabulous Friday. Albert, help.
Yeah, Friday Fabulous Florida. We got a good set of stories for you guys.
I had it right the first time. I always screw up the name of it. I can never.
Here,
Tony,
I got the intro.
Okay.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
That's so awesome. Okay, so Friday Fabulous Florida, here it comes. Mark might join in at some point, maybe not. He was talking about it, so we'll see if he pops in. Story number one. Iguana causes large-scale power outage in Lake Worth Beach. More than 1,400 customers had their power go out because this guy, and do I have a picture of him? I think I might have a picture. See if I put him in. Maybe I didn't put him in like I was supposed to. There's a little iguana on a picture of an iguana on a power line. No, I didn't put him in. I'm sorry, you guys. This guy, this little iguana, well, actually, it's quite a big iguana. He, let's see. Lake Worth beach officials say this iguana wandered onto a power line, somehow zapped the lights for 1,400 power customers. So crews have to go out there. It takes them about a half hour. They get the lights back on. Residents said, I thought there's got to be a car accident. My gosh, what happened? Everything just shut down. Is that how they talk in Florida? My computers weren't working. When Abigail at Happy Car Sales found out what happened, she said, an iguana? That's all it was? Really? Yeah. Power officials say there have been 3 separate incidents involving iguanas, half as many as last year, because they tried to put in some safety measures to stop the iguanas from making their way to the power lines. They say the problem with the iguanas are they're so big that they basically drive over the power lines and break them. Wildlife experts say these reptiles can cause damage to infrastructure as well by digging burrows that erode and collapse sidewalks, foundations, seawalls, berms, and canal banks. Who knew iguanas were so pesky?
They're an invasive species, right? They were like not supposed to be in Florida and got introduced, and right.
That's
right. And when the weather gets really cold, they're cold-blooded, so they just start dropping. They like to hide in hide places. They just drop and frozen.
So the iguana that caused this accident, did it survive?
Unknown.
Okay, because I would think if it's big enough, it's arcing the line, and that's when the transformers would blow up, and
it's a goner.
And it's
yeah.
And then it's
I don't have a lot of hope for that iguana.
Okay, no.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm feeling like that iguana is no longer with us, but
he could have been a very bright light.
A very bright light indeed. Okay, story number 2. Not funny. A woman found dead after falling overboard from a cruise ship off the coast of Florida. Coast Guard finds a 36-year-old woman who has not been publicly identified yet, 18 miles from the shore of Port Canaveral. She was aboard the MSC Meraviglia, owned and operated by MSC Cruises. The company is offering the woman's family condolences. In a statement, they explain the ship's advanced detection systems alerted staff members to an overboard passenger. They did an immediate search and rescue alongside the Coast Guard, who had boats and a helicopter out. Unfortunately, they said, despite the rapid rescue operation, the passenger did not survive. So they are offering their full support to the investigation. The Coast Guard is still looking into why this woman fell overboard. And as of last night, they didn't have any other details about whether she was pushed, jumped, whatever. So that happened. Number 3, this is kind of poetic justice. And I don't think Mark did this story, but even if he did, I'm going to do it again because I find it delicious. The Florida lawmaker who sponsored the controversial law that critics call the Don't Say Gay bill, he resigned last week, one day after authorities announced his indictment on charges of defrauding federal coronavirus loan programs for small businesses. Have you heard this one, Tony? Have we done this yet?
No.
This is Representative Joe Harding. He's a 35-year-old Republican. He sent a resignation letter in saying he needs to focus on his upcoming trial, which is scheduled to start January 11th. He says, now is the time to allow someone else to serve my district. Governor Ron DeSantis has to call a special election, to replace Harding. The former lawmaker is facing 6 counts that include wire fraud, money laundering, making false statements. The Justice Department alleges he improperly attained COVID relief loans. According to court filings between late 2020 and early 2021, Harding falsely described 2 businesses in the SBA economic injury disaster loan applications. He is said to have misrepresented their revenue, their employees, and created false bank statements to make them look active instead of dormant. In total, Harding allegedly obtained or attempted to obtain more than $150,000, and he now faces up to 30 years in prison. 35 years in prison if he's convicted. So that's it.
There you go.
Number 4, and this one Mark might have done. It's like a cross between Friday Fabulous Florida, so I always get it wrong, and Televangelist Theater. Like if those two had a baby, this is what it would be like. Family members who ran a sham ministry, also charged with something similar to Representative Harding, defrauding the federal government COVID relief funds in a scheme to buy a $3.7 million luxury home in a development at Walt Disney World. This sounds familiar. Mark might have done this.
Priorities.
Evan Edwards, 64, and his 30-year-old son Joshua were arrested on charges of bank fraud, conspiracy, and making a false statement to a lending institution, and visa fraud because they're Canadian as well. It's a 6-count federal indictment they're looking at. The criminal charges come more than a year and a half after the federal government obtained a civil judgment against the Edwardses to forfeit $8.5 million related to COVID fraud. All this to buy a mansion at Walt Disney World. Number 5 for Florida, Friday Fabulous Florida. I swear I'm going to get it. How long have I been on the Mark Thompson Show? A long time. The city of Miami has a firefighter who was caught on camera punching an emergency room patient while that patient was restrained on a gurney. Yeah. Dramatic surveillance video captured the moment a Miami firefighter pummeled a patient who had requested to be taken to the emergency room. Apparently, it's not the first time this first responder's name has been in the headlines. In the security footage, the firefighter is seen punching the patient multiple times inside of Jackson Memorial Hospital. This happened October 15th. The video starts right after rescue crews bring the patient in. This man is identified as Antonio Cruz, the patient. Cruz is seen on the stretcher with his body partially turned around. He appears to be saying something to rescue personnel. You know, whatever he was saying can't possibly be good, right? No. Yeah. Swear a word.
Yeah.
According to a report, Cruz was taken into custody for something else, and he requested to go to the hospital after consuming cocaine and heroin. Okay. So he was handcuffed to the stretcher. The video doesn't have any sound, so we don't know exactly what he was saying. But according to the report, the patient was agitated and screaming at rescue personnel. The video then shows Cruz spitting in the firefighter's direction.
That'll do it.
That's when it's all over. That'll do it.
Nope.
That's right.
Nope.
That seems to be what touched off the firefighter, who punched Cruz not once, but several times. The other rescue members had to pull this firefighter off the patient. Took them some time to get him to stop swinging. The fire department released a statement about the video saying the individual was immediately relieved of duty and the incident is now under administrative investigation.
That's well deserved, though. Administrative. I think if they could just create this into a positive, somehow, I don't know. Everything's a little different in Florida, so we never know with these things.
Don't spit at the people trying to help you, number one. But also, those people, see, this is why first responders are amazing. They have this crazy patience and ability to restrain. They should, anyway. That's what they're supposed to do, right? But they're human. And so this guy just loses his ever-loving mind. I guess I don't know how I would react if someone spit in my direction, but I would like to think if the guy was handcuffed to a gurney, it's not really a fair fight, right?
He still spit in your face,
And I think in this day and age, in the last 2-3 years, spitting in someone's face is a very different act these days because of the whole...
if it was,
are
if
you
it was
guys siding with the
spit,
firefighter? You are.
I'm just saying.
You are.
It would be different if this was an unprovoked attack on the ambulance, which would be an even funnier Florida story. And if you're from that community, you're like, all right, whatever it is, I don't want to get taken to the ER. Okay, because I know there's crazy people working here. But, 2019 spit, I probably have enough patience. 2022 spit, I don't know about that.
No, 2022 spit, that's when it's all over?
It's still a wrong act. You shouldn't have done that. But.
But.
Just saying.
But give him his job back and let him go on. Okay.
Just,
Okay.
How about it? Yeah, spit for spit, maybe.
Oh. You know what, though? That would have looked better on video, right? I mean, if you think about the optics of something, if a guy spits at you and you spit back, it's better than punching a patient on a gurney. That's
the handcuff to her. Yeah, there's no way for that to look good.
All right, number 6. We wrap it up with an alligator attack on Sanibel Island. According to Sanibel Fire Department, a 25-year-old man was attacked along a pond near Bailey's General Store on Periwinkle Way. The man was using the pond to wash his hands when an alligator bit his right arm. Can you imagine? You're like just washing your hands in a pond, maybe?
I mean,
and
who's washing their hands in a pond nowadays?
No, it's
Especially in
Florida. Don't do that.
Especially in Florida.
Just
of
no.
course.
I'm going to guess either a fisherman or a homeless person. I don't know. I don't want to be judgy on that. But this man was using the pond to wash his hands when an alligator bit his right arm. The man apparently able to free himself and call 911. Sanibel Fire saying people at the scene were able to make a tourniquet for his arm before medics arrived, but he suffered a really serious injury to his right forearm. Florida Fish and Wildlife and a Florida State trapper arrived on the scene. They captured this alligator 9 feet 2 inches long. This gator.
How did that sneak up on anybody?
Oh no. Yeah, so they remove it from the property, and this gator is no longer in that pond. Apparently, it wasn't supposed to be there. So that's Friday Fabulous Florida. Let's recap it, and let's have you vote on your favorite, you guys, and in the chat, if you could. Number 1, the iguana causes the power outage. Number 2, the woman dies after falling off the cruise ship. Number 3, the Florida representative who sponsored the Don't Say Gay bill indicted for fraud. Number 4, the family running a sham ministry charged with fraud, allegedly taking COVID money to buy a mansion at Disney World. Miami firefighter, number 5, punching restrained, albeit spitting patient at the hospital. And number 6, lastly, the hand washing in a pond that ended with a man nearly having his forearm bit off by an alligator. So what do you think, you guys? Tony, hit it.
Oh, Flash Friday iguana all the way.
All right, Albert.
Oh, let's give a hand. Let's give a hand, everyone, to the guy losing one to the alligator. I like that.
How does the look in the chat room? What are you guys saying over here? Let me poke in. There's porn people.
Fixed.
Can you block those guys?
Fixed. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Gator
quick. Worst nightmare. I'm with that. Pond water. Ooh. God, I don't have a.
We got lady on the
maybe
ship. I'm not gonna post that one, but I think there's a little. I don't know. Those cruise open bars are. I don't know. We got to look into that story again.
Lights out iguana. I'm there with you, Tony. Lights out iguana. That's indirect. Number 3 warmed my heart a bit.
Oh, sorry.
What was number 3? I have to look back for number 3.
It was the indicted.
The Florida. The Don't Say Gay bell. Yeah.
Bill, yep.
Yeah. Mine too, by the way. It warmed my heart as well. Ooh, barbecued iguana. Iguana for sure. Yeah, barbecued iguana. So it looks like a lot of votes for iguana. That's from Huge in Japan. CJ says assault equals placing someone in fear of unwanted or harmful touching. All right. Tom says the gator. Karen says the gator. Heather says the guy who had the encounter with the alligator in the pond. Washing hands in the pond from Debbie. Iguana all the way. It's either the iguana or the gator.
All the way. That's like a Florida Christmas movie. That's what that sounds like.
It really is. So I'm JR. Yeah. Barbecue iguana, men without hats. Okay. I'm going with iguana. Iguana, the hands down winner, is what it looks like for today. I do agree that it's the night of the iguana. Night of the iguana, John Watson. Okay. So that is Friday Fabulous Florida. You want to hit
this
the
has
intro?
been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
So I'm all discombobulated, but I did want to give you a little bit of news before we welcome in Michael Shure and Jim Avila to talk politics, which is always excellent. Iguana all the way. Yeah, okay, I hear you. But let's do a little bit of news, because why not, right? Do we have a news intro, or am I just going for it, Tony?
Just go for it.
Just go for it.
I don't have one.
Okay. This is what happens when Mark
I have some
Thompson's
stuff,
not
but
here.
not all the stuff.
That's okay. We're gonna make it work anyway. We don't need the music. I'll make it myself. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Brittany Griner says she will advocate for the release of former Marine Paul Whelan. In a social media post, Griner thanked the Biden administration for bringing her home and said her last 10 months in Russia were a battle at every single turn. That's what we were all thinking the whole time she was gone. Griner said she intends to play basketball for the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury this upcoming season. If she had stayed in prison, her basketball career, by the time she got out, it would have been, I would imagine it would have been done. So that she has that opportunity is great. Some Republicans and Democrats say they haven't seen President Biden's plan to address the surge of immigrants at the southern border. Officials from both sides warn that a humanitarian crisis is unfolding in El Paso, Texas. Immigrant groups report thousands of migrants are being forced to sleep on the freezing streets of the city because shelters there are just overwhelmed. They've got to do something. Twitter is facing questions about its plan to prevent the spread of child abuse content. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin, in a letter to Twitter CEO Elon Musk, says he is gravely concerned about the company's efforts to remove child abuse material from the site. Durbin's letter comes after several reports about Musk eliminating employees who work to prevent child sexual exploitation on Twitter. He got rid of the whole commission. So I don't know if there's anyone overseeing anything right now, but I think there's reason to be concerned. Nevada may follow Oregon in commuting all death sentences to life sentences. Outgoing Governor Steve Sisolak asked for the topic to be added to the agenda of a Nevada Board of Pardons meeting. That meeting will take place next Tuesday, so we'll see how that works. And Barbie fans are getting their first look at the new film featuring the iconic doll. The first trailer for the film starring Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken is out now. The movie will reportedly follow Barbie and Ken as they get stuck in the real world and she discovers the challenges of being a live woman.
I can't wait to hear Snyder review that one.
That's true. It's Michael Snyder, by the way, coming up at 11:30 to talk about movies, including Avatar: The Way of Water. So he'll be discussing that. But that's true. I'm looking forward to that review as well. I think that Barbie will discover the challenges of being a real woman are less when she walks into it with her figure. So I don't know. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, call 888 Tax Deal. You can find him online, moskowitzllp.com. I am Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show. And now let us welcome in Jim Avila to the program. Jim, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Just
Good.
fixing my AirPods at this very moment. But other than that, I'm in good shape.
Getting all situated. You sound good today. You're indoors. Is it a sunny day in Los Angeles or is it a little stormy?
It's a little cloudy. I don't think it's raining, but it's a little cloudy today.
Okay, because I love when you're on the patio too with the flag in the background. Oh, it's cold. A little too chilly for Jim Avila today. Yeah.
Well, it's a little cold for Jim Avila. I do have the hoodie on, but because I just
all
took my
right. So we might welcome in Michael Shure if he pops into the broadcast as well.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and start it off with ABC award-winning news correspondent Jim Avila, friend of the show, whom I adore. I want to throw this one at you first because
it's good to see you too. I've never seen you live. You look good.
So I'm a radio girl. I don't do TV. So this is all new for me. You know, I like being a little more mysterious, but Mark insisted.
I started in radio too. I have the face for radio. So.
No, you look good. You look really good. Okay, so this story came out yesterday, and you have to have seen it. It is all of these once classified files on the JFK assassination were released by President Biden. And I don't know, some reports on this that I've read call it kind of a big nothing burger. What do you think? Is there anything in there that surprised you?
You know, I wish I could be really excited about it, but I'm not.
Okay. No.
First of all, I don't believe in conspiracies. I'm the guy who says the simplest answer is usually the right answer.
Yeah.
So I go into things looking at it that way. I think in the 60 years since he was killed, JFK, we would have known something by now, even if those documents were classified. And from what I'm reading, the documents that they're releasing have nothing new in them. There are a few left, but the reason why many of them have been classified to this time is that they were CIA documents, and the CIA protects those documents because of not what's in them necessarily, although you could argue against it. And I realize that the CIA and the FBI have some torrid past, but the reason why they do it is because they reveal how they gather the information. They have inside their methods, how they infiltrate, how they gather information from sources. So those have not been released and are still, some of them, a few, I think it's 3% of the entire amount of documents have not been released. So
here's what's not been released.
Okay.
Yet. Let's see. Some documents will remain sealed. Transparency plans are to be released. Yesterday they did that. Among the files that are released, they say don't expect any major bombshells. They include information that the CIA gathered on Oswald before and after the Kennedy attack. The focus of, so they did a personality file for Lee Harvey Oswald. That was released, and information on Oswald's trip to Mexico City and CIA veterans' apparent conflict of interest also to be released. Why are not all the files released according to this story? Well, it looks like, and see, they were all supposed to be made available within 25 years with no exception, but the president has the ability to postpone some of them. So we don't know exactly why, but they're thinking that it may put state secrets in jeopardy or maybe affect our relationship with another country. Is that what you heard?
Yes. And I think that, and that's what I was talking about, is that they won't reveal them because they reveal something about either where we have spies or we had spies 60 years ago. If there were informants in Cuba. So if there were informants in Cuba that they had, and those revealed those informants in some way, the Castro brothers weren't going to like that a lot, and that could have been a real problem for our sources. So I think that's one of the reasons. If we had sources in Moscow, which we do, that could have been a problem. So I think that those are legitimate. And do we really believe? Do we really believe there was more than one person who shot the president? I'm sorry, I don't.
If you're Oliver Stone, I guess you do. And it's not, so it's one of these conspiracies theories that has been around forever. And you can kind of use it to, I don't want to say judge a person, like, okay, you're one of those folks, right? But when someone starts talking about the conspiracy, I used to be like, what? And now I'm like, I guess, I don't know. I guess we'll never really know,
Yeah, I think we know, but it makes for good copy and it makes for good discussion, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But they did they redid the one bullet theory. They've done all that. I remember Dan Rather did a terrific explainer on how the bullet could have done what it did.
Right.
And I feel bad, but I just think we have so many other things that are important at this point, 60 years later.
Hugely important things, like the threat against democracy, right? That should be chief on the table.
Right. I just think that John F. Kennedy was a change agent in the way we looked at government, the way we looked at about what politicians and what government could do on the good side. And I think that we lose some of that focus when we get involved in these conspiracy theories. I mean, when I think of JFK, I don't want to think about a third bullet. I want to think about how he began to open up civil rights, how he began to just change he propelled us into the space age. Those things. He was a different guy than our former. I mean, Eisenhower was a pleasant enough fellow who did a great job on D-Day, but what were his accomplishments really? And Kennedy started and Lyndon Johnson finished. The Great Society, things that really matter and can carry over till today, began the social change that this country needed. So that's when I think of JFK, that's what I think of. And I wish that his son would have carried on, and I wish his son would have showed up last year like he was supposed to, according to QAnon, and taken over. But it didn't happen, and we have to move on, in my opinion.
Let's welcome in Michael Shure, award-winning correspondent, to the mix. How you doing, Michael?
I'm well, good. I guess I missed the JFK.
Yeah, well, we're just talking about how all these documents were released yesterday.
It's an overrated airport. Oh wait, what? It's a big thing, and also I think that some weren't. To sort of kick down till next year is interesting as well. Which, for whatever reason, presidents seem to want to do.
Yeah, well, Jim was talking about, that maybe there's spies in other countries, our relationships with other countries that we don't necessarily want people to know about right now. So it may be that it just keeps getting punted by presidents down the line, that those are the things we don't want released, that those are the big secrets.
I guess so. I mean, it is 60 years ago now. And I think the water is definitely under the bridge in consideration of the fact that I would guess most of the people that were involved at any level are not here anymore. Maybe if there's something terribly egregious, that there would be some sort of retribution against a person who may have been involved. I don't know, but it heightens the level of scrutiny to this, to a conspiracy. I'm exhausted of it. I've heard enough about it, and it doesn't matter to me. I think we should just leave it alone. And I think that
come on, Michael, you got to help her out, because I said the same stuff. And
you did? Oh, okay.
I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm the simplest answer is probably the right answer.
Yeah.
And so I kind of made it. I was not a clickbait, so you got to be a little bit more of a clickbait for it than I am.
Unfortunately, I'm an Avila bait. I mean, I agree with Jim. I mean, that's how I am too. I'm not it was investigated. If they made a mistake, they made a mistake. I can live with it. But I don't think I'm Lee Harvey Oswald shot the president. His legacy is what it is. If QAnon were right, this is where I'll disagree. I don't think his son would have made such a terrific president. I don't know anything. I didn't know very much about him. And he didn't show back up. So it was surprising to a lot of people. I know Jim was surprised not to see him. But yeah, I mean, so it is interesting because American history is interesting, and recent American history and the lore of Kennedy and assassinations sort of up that ante a lot, because we don't have them, thankfully, very often in American politics. And so, and the lore of Camelot will never go away, at least for several generations.
So I think that, and not to beat this topic to death, but I think that so many people with these documents being sealed for so long thought, well, what don't we know? What are they hiding from us, right? Why are they not releasing all these documents? They want to keep it private. So there's so many things we don't know, and eventually we'll all find out the big truth. And it seems that now the documents are released, it turns out there's really not much that we didn't know.
True.
So
exactly. And it's mundane, right? I mean, a lot of the reasons that they don't release things is often due to process, how they investigate, how they're able to glean information. They don't want their methods, which are not nefarious in large part. I mean, I don't go in thinking they're nefarious.
Yeah.
Methods of investigation, methods of getting information, confidentiality. They don't want that out or known, and it's probably evolved since then, and a lot of that doesn't matter as much now. But yeah. We didn't learn very much. It was sort of David Blaine, or no, it was Geraldo Rivera going into the vault to find out it was Al Capone. Yeah. Exactly. There it was.
Okay, I'm switching topics. Go ahead.
Okay.
No.
I was going to say that in general, and in this, look, there can be an argument, a debate, I believe, about do we need spies and do we need all this kind of black arts?
Yeah.
I'm as progressive as they get. Okay. I mean, I like AOC. I believe that in this terrible world we live in, with guys like Putin, we need spies. So if there's a problem in revealing them in these documents, our methods of getting them and where they are, I have to side on I'm on the side of we need spies. So
always on the side of national security, because I would rather be protected, right? Yeah.
Well, to an extent. I don't want them listening to my phone calls, but other than that,
yeah. Okay, so there's this story that came out. I know you guys are going to be shocked by this. Twitter has banned accounts of several journalists from top news organizations. Wait a minute. I thought Twitter was about free speech. I thought Twitter was about don't censor anything. Let people say what they want to say, unless you have something negative to say about Elon Musk, in which case you're out. That's it. So all of these journalists, well, not all of them, but I don't know. I like this journalist a lot. He's from CNN. He's a little Irish guy. Sorry, I don't mean to offend you, Donnie O'Sullivan. The New York Times, Ryan Mack, the Washington Post, Drew Harwell, and other journalists as well. All of them have covered Musk very aggressively, and all of them in recent weeks had their Twitter accounts abruptly suspended. Are you guys surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. I'm not, and I'm not. This Elon Musk's entire public life is an ego trip, and he is, by all accounts, a brilliant guy who has, and has carried out the evolution, or has pushed forward the evolution of electric automobiles. He is looking into space. He has paid and made a lot of money, and so he bought this. But you knew also who he was, and this was an ego trip. And this all goes back to, doxing, saying where people are, where they live. Some of it's already public information. There was an Elon's Jet account, which sort of tracked Elon Musk's.
That got pulled, yeah.
Which got pulled. I think when a journalist is reporting a story about doxing and about the jet and retell and sharing information that was already known, that does not make them the doxer. I'm sure in terms of public safety, there are reasons probably to be careful about this stuff, but or in the safety of people. But it's just too far, and he's loving this power trip as everyone expected he would. And the product is being diminished every day to the point where people who used to be on it all the time aren't, and many have left.
Is he a hypocrite for saying in April that the day he purchased Twitter, that I hope even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means?
Yeah, I mean, hypocrite is like line number 3 in his biography, but yes, egomaniac, in some cases, repeating anti-Semitic things. Those are the top 2, I would say, allowing Donald Trump maybe even 3, and then that he's a hypocrite.
Where does entrepreneur fit in? Well,
there are a lot of people who believe he didn't invent that company. He didn't, Tesla at least. He didn't. He supersized it.
Yeah.
And look, I drive an electric car. I support that. I don't drive a Tesla, but I drive an electric car, and I believe that he's done a great thing in popularizing, making it accessible for many more people, this new technology, and for that I give him credit.
There's nothing hipper, and Jim Avila, of course, is the hippest, but there's nothing hipper than being able to say, I own now, today, on December 16th, 2022, I own an electric car, but it's not a Tesla. That's the best thing to be able to say right now.
Well, I mean, it does, for all the other damage we do in the world, it does make you feel a little better than you. And not only that, I've had an electric car for 4 years.
Oh.
This is my second one. And I haven't gone to a gas station in 4 years. I mean, it is so liberating. So we're getting up to a tangent. But anyway,
where do you get your white cheddar Cheez-Its then?
What's that?
Where do you get your white cheddar Cheez-Its if you don't go into a gas station?
That's true. And my overpriced Gatorade.
Yeah.
But I have a Trader Joe's in my
cheap
building,
coffee.
so
Yeah.
I go downstairs. But you know, what he's done with Twitter is a disaster. We all could do with a little less social media. So it means really I've cut my social media time down a lot because I don't go to it a lot. A lot of the people who were on it that aren't on it anymore. My red line has been, you know, when he put Donald Trump back on, I was just about to push the button, and then I found out that Donald Trump's not going to use it, so I took my button off, took my finger off the button. But if Donald Trump starts tweeting, I'm gone.
You're out.
And you know what? It doesn't matter. It'll be fine. I'd lived with it out of it before. It's a valuable resource, especially if you're still in the business every day. But you know, I have various text chains that that I'm on, and that's fine. And you know, I'm an old man, so I do. My friends are on Facebook, and that's all I need. You know, so if he's destroying it day by day.
It's a bummer for people that are still, street reporters that are doing the hard work every day, because I can tell you things have changed. And so it's not as much about beat calls anymore. It's about looking at all the press releases being popped out instead of, the night beat where you'd call the cops and they'd say, all right, we had a murder, we had break-ins, we had a home invasion robbery, all the news of the city. That all came out now in social media posts on usually Twitter. So it's a bummer for journalists that that's gone, and I think that will be gone.
It is. I think.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I think I think it also created, and I'm guilty of it, some lazy journalism. It's a great place to share your work. It's a great place to sort of flex your personality if you're a journalist, to sort of stand out from a pack of journalists, which and I think is important because it brings, hopefully in the perfect world, brings more views to your work or eyeballs, however it is you do it. And so I think that it did serve a purpose, but and I think what Jim and what you said, Kim, are true. I mean, it does. It creates an echo chamber, though. And I think that's a problem because you're not playing, I found a lot of journalists, myself included, guilty as charged, but you're playing to your colleagues as much as you are playing to the people you're, entrusted to share the news with, without being pokey. And so I think a little bit of that will probably be helped with the demise of Twitter, if that's what happens.
And I think we're missing, Kim, I would prefer that our young journalists make the overnight beat calls.
Yep.
Check with actual people, because press releases are press releases, and what goes on Twitter is from their point of view. I worked at KCBS in my beginning of my career in San Francisco, and was the San Jose quote unquote bureau chief. It was me and my telephone, and every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, before drive time, as you were talking about, I made my beat calls.
Oh yeah,
and I knew those people,
and it's those relationships.
And they would talk to me. So and then that carried on that practice all the way through till I was White House correspondent. Every day I would call my sources. Those that's valuable, and so if we lose that part from Twitter, I'm not sure it's to the detriment of the
you're right. It was always the relationships that got me the stuff that no one else had. It was always the relationships that were like people were calling me and I didn't have to call them. So that was
called every morning, and that's
every
that's
morning.
The difference between you and a reporter who's not working that hard.
Yeah.
So
it did matter on the campaign trail as campaigns have become more cloistered. And I mean, this is where almost, doxing where the candidate is and where they're campaigning is important. They've become more cloistered. They don't give out the same kind of information. You cannot get the phone number of the campaign office or manager or anything like that. So that's where Twitter is helpful. As someone who was, on the trail, you would see, ex-reporter who, if you're working for a place that doesn't have the budget that, say, NBC has, and NBC has someone with Ted Cruz every day, and you find out where Ted Cruz is because that reporter is kind of forecasting it or sharing it, but you can't get through to the Cruz campaign. I'm making this up, but it's what I'm saying is not fictional in structure. And so that was helpful. And where access has become a very difficult thing in a partisan world where Republicans don't want what they think to be the progressive media, the liberal media, the fake news with them, and Democrats don't want Newsmax or One America News on their trail. It becomes very restrictive, and Twitter helped for that. If it's only that, if that's all they did, then it's not worth it. But Twitter did help.
Yeah. That turned into a great journalism conversation. I loved it. So let's switch over to the First Lady, Jill Biden, and her kind of about face when talking about President Biden running again in the next couple of years for 2024. Apparently, according to this article on CNN, she is now saying that she was skeptical earlier as a fall, not a proponent of him running again. And now she's saying, since the November midterm elections, that she's all in for Joe Biden running again in 2024. I think it's huge what the spouse thinks. So we've all been talking about him not running, but if his wife says she's all in, I mean, you think that's spin? Or do you think that's real? Do you think that makes a difference?
I think it's what everybody else is saying. Since the midterms, Joe Biden's electability looks a lot better. And I think that a lot of people are saying that. And I think she's coming around. As far as first ladies, Betty Ford didn't want Gerald Ford to run. Pat Nixon didn't want Richard Nixon to run a second time. There were a lot of people, first ladies in history, even Eleanor Roosevelt at the end didn't want FDR to run in the fourth term. So does it make that much difference? It's always good to have him on your side. But I think it's expected that she would come out for him. And he's gathered momentum. Do I personally look, as I've said, since I'm retired, Michael can't do this, but I can. I take political positions now. And while I think Joe Biden is probably the best candidate to go against Donald Trump, that it's looking less and less, or it's looking not less and less. It's looking a little bit like maybe there'll be another Republican candidate. And I'm not so sure that Joe Biden is a better candidate against a 50-year-old or a 55-year-old. And I think the Democrats have to take that into consideration. And I think, like a lot of people, we like Uncle Joe, but we're hoping that a younger, more vital candidate shows up.
I think too. I mean, there are a few different ways of looking at this. First of all, the Bidens, in many ways, operate differently than many first families and many political families do. His sister Valerie was always someone who managed his campaigns, was his closest advisor. He always brought decisions to his family, whether or not you believe the lore. Let's say 80% of it is true. All of this is decided en masse. And so it does hold a great deal more water if Jill Biden's saying she is all in, more so than clearly what Betty Ford had to say, because Jerry went ahead and ran anyway. So, but I do think still there's, and Jim sort of teased this a little bit, there's no other option for her to say other than, I want him to run. I'm all in. We're all optimistic. Everything is going great. We got good results and we are full steam ahead. that's what her, anybody's role is, and that's the president's. That you can change your mind later on. The other part of it is his victory becomes slightly more plausible with a plummeting Donald Trump. Should Donald Trump want to run as an independent and divide the Republicans, then all of a sudden the Democrat has a better shot at the presidency. The race becomes a different kind of a race, maybe one that's more winnable for an incumbent, even an elderly incumbent. So some things changed a little bit in the dynamic and the political discourse that I could see impacting the Biden's decision to run, but all of those things play into it.
Let's go back to what you just said, Michael, about a Donald Trump running as an independent. Like, there's just the idea of that. Do you think it plays out that he runs as a Republican, and when he loses against someone like DeSantis, then he's like, well, I'll just run as an independent? Is that what happens? Is that how you foresee that could play out, or what are you thinking?
I mean, there's certainly an option. He could also run as an independent from the get-go, knowing where he's going to be taking. I'm sorry, I guess I'm boring, Jim. He could run as an independent from the get-go, and then galvanize whatever numbers he can heading into a general election. So again, it sort of screws the system, which he loves doing, by messing with the Republican primaries. But you have no sort of way of predicting what's going to happen. It could hurt DeSantis even more if he does that, because any Trump supporters who are registered Republicans who can't vote for Trump in a primary could come out to that primary and try and keep Ron DeSantis off the ballot and run for whatever third, fourth, fifth, or sixth tier candidate is out there, just to try and mess with Ron DeSantis. So a lot can happen. I think he likes to upset the apple cart, and whatever way he sees as best to do that, he will absolutely do.
Okay, so I'm going to throw two Trump stories at you in a row. The first one was from yesterday, where he has this major announcement, and it turns out to be a $99 digital trading card that also comes with a chance that you could win stuff like dinner with President Trump and memorabilia and fun things like that. It's kind of a Merry Griftmas, right? And the other story is from CNN, this one, that Trump unveils plans to take on tech companies if he wins in 2024, trying to appeal to a conservative base to kind of stick it to these tech guys in the Bay Area, maybe. He says if he's elected president again, he would ban federal money from being used to label speech as misinformation or disinformation, fire federal officials who have engaged in what he's characterizing as domestic censorship, and punish universities who engage in censorship activities by cutting their federal funding. So I'll start with you, Mr. Avila. If you take both, one or the other, whatever you want to do.
Well, the NFT or whatever it is. See you, Michael.
That's awesome.
Waiting to do that.
Sorry, I had to blow my nose. I'm old-fashioned. I don't do it in the TV camera.
I know. I had to do it in front of the thing. Yesterday, this is how new I am at TV. Yesterday, I muted my video, but not my audio, and blew my nose. So embarrassing.
That's great.
Oh, well, we have to do what we have to do. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, I think he's getting into these digital cards a little late, isn't he? I mean, isn't all that crashing around him? And perfect timing, Mr. President.
As the father of a card collector, I know that very well.
Yeah. So have at it. I mean, this is all fundraising stuff. It's even the going up against the high tech guys. This is all playing to the base, trying to get money in. He really has kind of disappeared on the campaign trail. He's not holding the rallies. He's talking to small groups, trying to raise money and to keep his name a little bit, as much as he can in the media. But he's in real trouble. As far he's got that 35%, which makes him a factor in the primaries. But beyond that, he's in real trouble.
He also has, though, to his credit, his finger on the pulse of what his people like to hear. So, in talking about that tech company thing, his people love an enemy, and he figured that out. And I think, spoon feeding him this kind of stuff now is setting the table for who he's going to appeal and how he's going to appeal to them, which I think is, which is smart for any politician to do. And he won the presidency by doing it. So you have to give him a decent amount of credit for understanding that, and however horrible or great you think it is, that's the game he's playing right now, and it's going to cut into whoever else is running against him, no matter what, in a primary. And if he runs as an independent, again, like I was just saying before, he's going to carry these people on his back with him, and that's going to be important.
So I'll throw this out because I thought this text was interesting, and it goes back to the journalism conversation kind of that we're having before about how to do it right. You know, David says the media is still dancing to Trump's tune. Every major outlet covered his major announcement extensively the day before. Why don't they learn? Why is it a guy who now, according to a recent poll that I read, is down below DeSantis in a potential 2024 Republican primary, right? Why are we still like everything he does, let's talk about it? I mean, I personally find it all amusing and laughable, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's interesting to like, oh, what's he done today kind of thing. But what do you think about that? Should we just stop talking about him?
Well, it has damped down since remember 2016, where we were carrying CNN and all of them,
right,
were carrying everything he said, including every rally live. That didn't happen this last time, and it's not happening now. Even his announcement wasn't carried by most outlets this time around. So I think there has been some education. First of all, Jeff Zucker is gone from CNN, who was really one of his big he liked him not because of his policies, but he liked him because people watched. And I think that was a problem. He's gone. I think that it has gotten less and less. I pay attention a lot to the news. And yesterday you could find it that most of it was mocking him about this new.
It's mocking. That's how we did it.
Right. So I don't think you can totally ignore him, but if there's a good chance to mock him, I would take it. I would take it good. I would take it.
Yeah, and if a former president, I think we would have, if Jimmy Carter sent out a picture of himself dressed in a animated superhero costume and saying that this is my big announcement, people would cover it and mock it too. I mean, absolutely. I know that we're saying him, and I'm not just trying to be difficult, but I'm saying that these are the kinds of things. I don't think it got more than a quick thing. It wasn't the lead. A lot of people had fun with it on Twitter, but he is also, he attracts, people. I watch what he says because I have to, but people watch what he says and does because it's a show.
Yeah.
Well, what's important too is and what Michael does and other good journalists do that are still working is that in 2016 they were playing these rallies raw, right?
Yeah.
But now we still have to report the news about Donald Trump. As Michael says, he's a former president, and there's so much news about him being indicted and everything else. We have to cover him, but now we cover him. Now we have to cover him with perspective and insight, and I think that's being done a lot more, unless you're watching Fox, a lot more than it used to be, and that's important. I don't think you can ignore him. But you really have to not allow him unfiltered. Every time now he's on, we always say, this started during when he was president, but now it's real. Every time we'd say he's lying or without any justification. Those things have changed. So I don't think you can dump on the media totally.
That's totally true. Also, one thing that's important from the journalistic standpoint is he is, for however much that matters, he's an announced candidate for the presidency in 2024. He's not just a former president, he's a former president coming back to be president again.
Which kind of makes it even more fair game. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Anything that you guys have been thinking about that you want to mention before we have Michael Snyder waiting in the wings, but I just kind of want to give you an opportunity to go for it. Yeah.
A program note: you got to watch the Nancy Pelosi documentary.
Oh, okay.
Shot by her daughter, former colleague of mine when I was at NBC. She's a campaign. She was always on the bus with presidential candidates. That was her role. Sorry,
it's okay.
Cedar Sinai.
Life in the big city.
Yeah. This documentary is excellent. It's behind the scenes. It really reveals her steely character and what a badass she is.
Oh, she is. Yeah.
And it goes behind the scenes in the January 6th, what she was doing and how she was kind of the leader in that room full of Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, I have to say that Schumer did step up as well, but they were really trying to get things handled, and it's really excellent. You should give it a try.
Speaking of that, I forwarded you guys both the interview from CNN. I forget the name of the reporter who did the sit down Chinese food lunch with Schumer and Pelosi to kind of just check out the end of her, her basically leadership career. And it ends with Nancy Pelosi. The question is, do you think Trump is sane? And she kind of finishes her Peking duck and she looks at the camera and she goes, I think he needs an intervention. He's not right. Yeah. It was kind of really powerful the way she said it, where it was the moment where, and you knew what she felt all along, but this finally being able to go, this guy is crazy and someone in his family really needs to do something, you know?
Yeah, the January 6th day. One more thing, Michael. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving credit to Jamie Gangel who did that.
Thank you.
Gangel, yeah. So, but on the Nancy Pelosi documentary, the behind the scenes is where they caught her, and I think this was played in the January 6th. Someplace else it was played, but you see her say when Trump says, "I'm going to be with you. I'm coming down there," and she says, "Come on down. I'm going to punch you in the nose if you show up at the Capitol unannounced. Please come." So that's the kind of behind the scenes thing you get. Watch it. It's very informative and a lot of fun.
Yeah. So that's good. Good advice. Anything else, Michael Shure?
No, I can't top that. I'm looking forward to watching it. I haven't watched it. I read Molly Ball's book about the speaker, which was a great book, great read. She's a great writer. But no, I'm going to watch the same. Don't watch Harry and Meghan, I guess is what I would say.
Two cute boys. Both of you, Jim
Yeah.
Avila, Michael Shure, you guys are so amazing, and I'm so grateful to talk to you. It's really an honor. Thank you for being on the show today, both of you, and I look forward to hanging out with you next Friday.
All right. See you then.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, let's welcome in, before he gets really mad at me, Michael Snyder, who is all about movies, and I have been so excited to talk to you about the new Avatar movie. So first of all, how you doing?
I am good. Happy to be here. I'm not that worried about the time restraints because, like Avatar, this could be a 3-hour segment. You never know. Hey, listen.
It is long, right? Like, is it way too long?
Way too long. Listen, I got to first say happy holidays to everybody. And I am so caught up in the holiday spirit, and so are so many others. For instance, I walked into a restaurant last night, and there was a lovely little Christmas tree sitting at the hostess station. And right next to it was a sign that read, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone." And I'm thinking, what, even Santa or Jesus? I mean, that is harsh. So much for the Christmas joy and the joy of giving. But we really should get down to it, because this is a mighty long film, and I guess the review won't be anywhere near as comparable, but there are twists and turns. So let me get to it. After far too many years, screenwriter-director James Cameron has finally delivered his sequel, and make that his first of at least a few sequels to his massive 2009 blockbuster movie, Avatar. Avatar, The Way of Water is here. Ta-da! Well, it's a technical marvel, creating a massive alien environment and characters using state-of-the-art motion capture tech on the actors and computer animation everywhere else. For all its visual glory and eventual action, because it does pick up, its narrative faults are nagging as it starts into its 3-hour and 12-minute run. Yeah, Kim, you heard me. 192 minutes. Yikes. Anyway.
Of blue people, right? Is it still blue people?
Among other things. Initially, this animated splendor feels overblown and bloated, I have to tell you. Bloated like a body that's been immersed in water too long. And of course, it's called The Way of Water, so maybe that makes sense. But in any case, unless you saw and remember the first Avatar movie from over a dozen years ago, you're lost here. And if you never saw it, you're even more lost because the premise and backstory are not clearly recounted at the start of this new movie. So, I mean, do they expect us all to have gone to this re-release a couple of weeks ago? So we're kind of boned up on Avatar. I don't know. But I have to say the shorthand approach that Cameron takes doesn't cut it. That's a major flaw because the script and the action of the first 90 minutes are a little muddled or just gratuitous eye candy. And, I like that to an extent, but 90 minutes. Anyway, they needed to clearly reestablish what we all ought to know. Humans have traveled in space and are mining a lush, unspoiled planet named Pandora for the rare element unobtainium. That's right. It's a name out of an old Uncle Scrooge comic, where the duck is searching for some super valuable metal. We've got to get the unobtainium. Anyway, so the humans are at war with the Na'vi, the tall blue alien natives of the planet. And to be more effective in their efforts, Earth scientists grow cloned Na'vi bodies and download the brains of the human Marines into the big blue clones to kind of infiltrate. But Jake Sully, played by Sam Worthington in the first movie and here, a Marine whose brain is encoded into a clone, falls for a Na'vi woman named, I think, Neytiri, and she's played by Zoe Saldana. And our boy Jake goes native, turning on his buddies. That's right. He basically turns on his buddies in the Space Force, and he basically helps the Na'vi drive off the interlopers. Okay, in the new movie, humans are back to invade Pandora a decade later, still looking to obtain that darned unobtainium with the Na'vi clone Marine Force. Their shock troops looking for Jake the traitor, who now has a whole Na'vi family, including an adopted daughter that somehow, okay, pay attention here, somehow the adopted daughter is the child of the human scientist played by Sigourney Weaver in both movies, and she's now a clone in a tube, I think. Anyway, the Marines drive Sully's family from their Pandora forest home, which looks like the cover of a Yes album painted by Roger Dean, and they take up with a seafaring Na'vi tribe led by a blue Cliff Curtis and a blue Kate Winslet. Right. Kate Winslet reunited with her Titanic boss, Cameron, because I guess, I don't know, water in both films. Anyway, if you make it through the first 90 minutes, this actually becomes a pretty thrilling action film, especially if you like video games with, cool oceanic creatures and air-to-sea battles and aliens on flying and swimming steeds. It's kind of like the movie equivalent of those high-end rides at Disneyland that required an e-ticket, only the ride lasts 3 hours. Look, I appreciate Cameron's obvious stances against despoiling the environment and preserving native cultures. Yeah, but anyway, there are at least 2 or 3 more Avatar movies to come, and there won't be as long a wait between them as between the first and second, and there might even be better scripts, but unlike a submerged Na'vi, I won't be holding my breath, Kim.
But this movie cost a hell of a lot to make, and they're hoping for a huge release. I mean, what they're banking on is pretty amazing. What happens if they don't recoup that money?
He continues plowing forward. Someone told me, and this could be specious, that they have to earn $2 billion to break even. Maybe that's counting the other movie I think he already shot, Avatar 3, The Way of the Dirt. I have no idea what that, I don't know. But,
The Way of the Dirt. Oh, man.
Anyway, hey, and there's other talented people here. Edie Falco plays a Marine officer. You barely recognize her. Michelle Yeoh is in this thing, I think. I blinked. Maybe I missed her. Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords has a visible role in this thing. And the Na'vi are kind of like Maori when they go to war. They start sticking their tongues out and stomping and what have you. Right. There are visual delights here, but good God, seriously, if you already know what the story's about, go in 90 minutes in and enjoy the last hour and a half. Oh, boy, it's great.
Okay, that movie makes me tired just thinking about sitting through it. All the stuff, all the things, and the plot twists. So you also saw Bardot?
Yeah, although there are some who would deride Bardot, which has a much longer title, which I will get to. It's the latest movie from multiple Oscar-winning director and screenwriter Alejandro G. Inarritu. and they're going to call it self-indulgent. But I was caught up in this surreal depiction of the inner life and outer truths of Silverio, an acclaimed Mexican journalist and documentary filmmaker who was based in Los Angeles with his wife and kids. Okay, I mean, the full title is a bit much. Are you ready? Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths. But again, I was caught up in it. And if you don't know, Inarritu, even if you do, Inarritu is the guy who made Birdman and The Revenant, among other really good films. But this is nowhere near as commercial as those two. Bardo is a much more personal movie. It's kind of like Inarritu doing his take on Fellini's 8.5. Where he basically incorporates autobiographical perspectives in a kind of opulent, almost near fantasy world. Anyway, so on the verge of Silverio receiving an international award, he's moved to return to Mexico and re-examine his life. And as this happens, there are dream sequences, satirical looks at the exploitive tabloid-style nature of some TV talk shows. There are burlesques of Mexican history, meditations on home, fame, family, love, friendship, and identity, strange landscapes, chaotic party sequences, much more, all depicted with dazzling cinematography. Is it too much? Maybe for some, but like I said, I was caught up in it. And you could decide for yourself if you want. Bardo is in theaters, but it also debuts on Netflix today.
We're dinging opulent. There's probably other ding words in there, but I don't know.
Leave it to that fussy Mark Thompson next week.
Well, he took the dinger, first of all. So,
how dare he?
How dare he? How dare you? Yeah, he took the... So now I have to, ding with my own ding. So I'll ding opulent.
Okay.
We'll give you that one.
All right.
So what's next on the list?
Oh, I have a third movie I wanted to talk about specifically because we like to talk about family entertainment around the holidays. It was great. Like, for instance, you could now watch Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio on Netflix, and it is truly one of the best films of the year. It's beautiful. And it's also very moving and dark, like the original story. But we have a new animated movie that's coming out next week, and I'm going to jump the gun a bit for you and your kids so you can prep yourselves. It's called Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Okay. And it is the latest in the spin-off featuring Antonio Banderas as the lovable sword-wielding booted cat Puss in Boots, the spin-off from the Shrek films. And I've enjoyed the Puss in Boots movies much more than the Shrek movies, and I think they basically hold up better because Shrek was so topical in its jokes and so jammed with like one-liners that it kind of flattens out after the first viewing, whereas this does not. So our swashbuckling feline is back here after, I guess, almost 10 years away, and he is facing the greatest challenge he's ever faced. He's down to his 9th life. And he's being pursued by a killer wolf who wants the reward for Puss in Boots, the outlaw, dead or alive, and he's cool with dead. So Puss goes into hiding, and he ends up with a cat lady who basically keeps him prisoner till his little chinny chin chin is like a beard. And finally, he's sprung and reunites with his lady love. I guess Kitty Softpaws, is that her name? I think it's just such a crazy name, and it is as ever a cool little team up because Kitty's voiced by Salma Hayek. So you've got Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek doing that sort of bantering, antagonistic love dance, and then you have him being pursued by this vicious wolf. And Goldilocks and the Three Bears are also in the hunt because they want to get their hands on a wishing star that's fallen to Earth. And to get to it, they have to go through monumental obstacles and fight off one another. And if Puss gets it, he can wish for more lives. And he's, kind of being selfish in that regard. But right. I was thoroughly entertained. The voices of the bears, I loved it. The voices of the bears, it's got some clever stuff for adults, but it's just charming. Olivia Colman is Mama Bear.
Okay.
And this is so great. And Ray Winstone is Papa Bear. And Goldilocks is voiced by Florence Pugh. And so you have all of that going on. And then there's a little dog that is Puss's companion, voiced by Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows. I would give this thing really high marks. Director Joel Crawford basically did a great job, as did writer Paul Fisher. I had fun, and I hope everybody else who likes this sort of thing checks into it, because I don't think they'll be disappointed.
So that's Puss in Boots?
Yep, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. It opens on Wednesday.
In theaters, but not streaming?
No, not streaming yet. It's a theater opening, but it's wide theaters, and wear your mask and whatever. But okay. I think when it gets to streaming, if you want to wait to that point, you're going to enjoy the hell out of it at home. I think it's going to have a good half-life. It's the sort of thing maybe people are going to be able to watch more than once, because it's just fun, absolute fun.
So I did the story earlier about the new Barbie movie that stars Margot Robbie as Barbie, and Ken, that is Ryan Gosling. And people are saying they can't wait to see you review this one, but I'm not sure when it's coming out. It hits theaters July 21st, so it'll be
Ryan Gosling. So it's like Baba Barbie, a little La La Land. I don't know. It's directed by Greta Gerwig, who's made some really interesting things, and she's the companion or a longtime collaborator with God, what's the guy's name? He's made a whole boatload of, that's not important. What's important is that Noah Baumbach, that's right. He has a new film coming out and available on Netflix next week called White Noise. We'll talk about it next week. But I trust Greta Gerwig. But it seems, venal. It seems like conniving. All right, we're going to use the brand and we're going to bring it to movies, and we're going to sell more dolls. I don't know what their sensibility here is, but I would bet you that Greta Gerwig had and doted on a Barbie while growing up. I'm just making a stab in the dark here.
Have you seen yet what Jim Avila and Michael Shure were talking about, which is the documentary on Nancy Pelosi?
I have not. And as a matter of fact, that was listening to this segment earlier. That's the first time that I have even heard about it. And I'm pretty plugged in. But it sounds really exciting and interesting. And giving us insights into the speaker. I would love to check it out. By the way, speaking of exciting things and jumping over to television, did you watch The White Lotus over the course of its 2 series?
Okay, see, I haven't watched it. It's on my list. I only recently acquired HBO Max because finally I got tired of never having seen Game of Thrones. So I'm in the middle of Game of Thrones and I haven't started White Lotus yet.
I won't do any spoilers, but the second season is incredibly satisfying. The White Lotus is ostensibly a chain of resort hotels, and the brilliant Mike White, who also you would possibly know as the writer and creator of School of Rock, he came up with this thing that follows the adventures of a bunch of wealthy and privileged people that come to White Lotus locations. The first one set in the tropics of the Pacific, and this most recent one shifting focus to Sicily. And man, it was incredibly satisfying and very addictive, and held back week to week because of the HBO connection. But if you haven't caught up to series 2 and you like the first White Lotus, I can't endorse this enough. I love it.
Anything else you're watching on streaming on TV?
Well, like I said last week, I'm loving Wednesday, which is the Addams Family spinoff. And I do want to point out that girls dressed as Wednesday Addams and dancing the Wednesday Addams dance to the Goo Goo Muck by the Cramps has been throttling social media. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You cannot escape girls dressed up as Wednesday Addams and doing this dance. Or not even dressed up as Wednesday Addams, but just dancing their little tuchuses off. It is hilarious. And talk about something getting into the zeitgeist. If you haven't watched Wednesday, it's thoroughly entertaining, and Jenna Ortega is great. But I'm just repeating what I said last week about that.
Okay, so to recap, I'm going to say you liked Avatar: Way of Water.
I half liked it. I think it's very flawed, and it gets tedious for the first 90 minutes.
So you didn't hate it. You half liked it.
I half liked it.
That's like a kind of thumbs medium, right?
It's like that hand flapping back and forth in front of you.
Bardo, how'd you feel about that one? You liked it?
I liked it. I did like it. I thought it was good. I don't know that everyone else will. I'm being kind of maybe a contrarian.
And you really enjoyed Puss in Boots.
Immensely.
I'm shocked by this, but okay.
Hey, come on. I'm not a Grinch. I'm not a Grinch.
It seems like one of those movies I have to sit through just because I have kids. But I'm glad to know that you liked it because I will approach it now with more excitement.
I think you'll be charmed, Kim. And speaking of charmed, how about the charmed life of one Brock Purdy? If I sound extra happy today.
49ers. Where's Albert?
I don't know, but the commissioner would probably agree with me. The 49ers are on a bit of a roll, and this kid is turning into one of the best sports stories of the year.
Cinderella story, Mr. Irrelevant. It's movie like. You should know that, Michael.
I agree with you, Albert. I'm looking forward to what happens. I'm cautiously optimistic. I love my team, and go Niners. And I'm sorry to hear about Steph Curry's injury, but I do not give up on my teams. Win or lose, go Dubs.
Well, that's a Steph Curry shoulder injury, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, the Warriors are in trouble after that.
It ain't going to be an easy road, but we'll see if he comes back quick enough to save the season. But in the meantime, always a pleasure, Kim and Albert.
Yep. Go 49ers. Thank you, Michael Snyder. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
I love doing it, guys. Have a great weekend.
See you next Friday. You too. Let us bring in now Nikki Maduro. Hello. How are you?
Oh, can you? Oh, there I am. Hi.
There you
How are
are.
you? How are you?
Oh, I don't want to cover your face, but I want to see what you're doing. We're going to talk more 49ers. There you go. Stand up above it. We're going to talk, Puerto Ricans. Yeah, some exciting new legislation.
Yes. Very excited.
Right.
I am going to play you, and it's a few minutes long, AOC's comments about it, because I really think that she lays out what's in this bill, what's not in this bill. And I think the most important thing to get from this is Puerto Ricans are going to be able to make the decision themselves, because one of the questions that was posed was, how would we feel as Americans if another country was making all these decisions for us? So who knows, referendums have gone down there before, but yeah, so it's different this time. Nancy Pelosi is not a supporter of making Puerto Rico a state. So even Mitch McConnell agrees with her, so that's saying something. And then I just have some sort of breaking news. I don't know if you saw, and I don't know how long it's going to last, but at this point, and I know you touched on Elon Musk, we will as well. He has removed Twitter Spaces. Which was something that we used after we left Station X, where people join in. He joined a Twitter Spaces, was called out for the BS of, suspending journalists' account. He kind of fumbled and left right away. And then right after that, apparently he has disabled Twitter Spaces. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll have Tim Sika on, get his take on Avatar. And there is another film, and it's an older film that I tried to watch. And I was watching it last Friday. Couldn't get more than 10 minutes in. I want Tim Sika's kind of take on it, because it's been in the news for some reason. And so Tim has a really interesting take on this film that's been in the headlines lately. So we'll talk about that as well.
And you say there's a new way to steal packages off porches?
Yes. And it's I don't want to call it genius, but it's one of those things, when you want to sneak in someplace. And so what do people tell you? Just act like you belong there, right?
Sure.
Like just have this air of like, I belong here.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that with these porch pirates. So I'll get into that as well. And we don't like to see it this time of year. Use Amazon lockers. We have an Amazon store as well. We have a lot of stuff. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit it all in, as our good friend John Rothman always would say, but we'll try our best.
So that's the Nikki Maduro Show. That starts in about 2 minutes, and we will put the link in the chat if you want to come over and follow us there. I will also be with you. Quick thank you to tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for sponsoring this show. We're so grateful. 888 Tax Deal, MoskowitzLLP.com. If you've got a tax problem, Steve can help you. He is the one that will be able to sweep in, give you confidence, allow you to sleep at night. He's worth it. So 888 Tax Deal, MoskowitzLLP.com. We're grateful to Steve for making the show possible as well. Mark Thompson, still in Washington, D.C. He will be back on Monday. I want to thank Tony for putting everything on the air and getting us making it sound smooth. And
you did good this week.
Yeah, no, thank you. You're always so amazing. What band is that? Show what your shirt says today.
Pantera.
Okay.
Love
all right.
Band. Love them so. I saw them live so many times. Oh, so many good shows.
I love your band shirts. We just kind of started noticing recently that every day there's a different band
I
shirt.
have too many of them. It's literally my entire. I think it's literally where one girlfriend dumped me. She's just like, I'm tired of all you wear band shirts. I'm like,
I kind of like it.
She hated it. She hated
so
it
whatever.
so much.
See ya, lady. Albert, thank you so much for everything. You're awesome. I appreciate it. To John Daly for sending stories, as always. Thank you. Jennifer Jones-Lee, who came on the broadcast today. Michael Shure, Jim Avila, Michael Snyder, Nikki Maduro. Thanks to everyone, and thanks to you for being here. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will see you on Monday. For Mark Thompson, I'm Kim McAllister, and bye-bye.